birthday to you. Out on the town and looking for something to do. Another year older, so don't go getting the blues. Having a party with all your friends, so good to be all together again. Laughing and joking, eating the cake, seeing just how much noise you can make. Well, happy birthday to you. Another year older, so don't go getting the blues. Nice decorations all over the place. I see a big smile on every face. Balloons get flat, your voice is high from sucking in all of that helium. Well, happy birthday to you. Another year older, so don't go getting the blues. Well, happy birthday to you. Out on the town and looking for something to do. Another year older, so don't go getting the blues. Yeah, you're another year older, so don't go getting the blues.
Happy birthday to you, and I hope you have many more. Happy birthday to you, and I hope you have many more. I hope all your dreams come marching through that door. I hope you get what you want, and you want what you're wishing for. I hope you get what you want, and you want what you're wishing for. And when you get what you want, thank your lucky star. I wish you health, wealth, and happiness too. So this birthday boogie is just for you. Now that you're surrounded with the things you adore, I'll holler happy birthday just once more. Happy birthday! Happy birthday! Happy birthday!
Hello,
That's so funny.
hello, Jen, and welcome back. It is so good to have
It's
you.
great to be back. Great to be back. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That was a very cute intro you put together, by the way.
Happy birthday,
I was just
Jennifer.
sitting here doing some chair dancing, you
Yeah,
know.
that's what I told everybody. Y'all ought to
Yeah.
be dancing. You ought to be dancing. So,
Yeah.
before we get started, I just want to say hi, Donald and Kim. Thank you for moderating, Hans, and everybody's saying happy birthday. But we have a lot to talk about. Hello, Poppy. Jim, who's going to DC for Earth Day. And, well, Jen, I'm going to turn it over to you because I want you to tell everybody about your adventures and lead the way, baby.
Oh, okay, guys. Well, yes, I did go on a adventure to Europe. I was in Avignon for about a week in the southeast of France, I guess, or south of France, dead south. And it is the land of my ancestors on my mother's side. So it's kind of back to the old haunts a little bit. You know, they were Huguenots back in the day, and they basically had the choice in 1685 at the revocation of the Edict of Nantes, for all you history buffs out there, to convert to Catholicism from, they were some brand of Huguenot, right?
Yeah,
And then, or
Huguenot.
they could die or they could leave. And so my side of the family left France in 1685 for that very reason. So this was kind of back to that old area in France where my mother's family was from
Very
initially.
cool.
So
It's really
yeah,
cool that you got to go. And
yeah.
we do have a treat for everybody. We do. But
Oh,
Jennifer, that's the treat. But Jennifer, why don't you tell your stories?
okay, guys. Well, I'm not going to tell the whole story of France because Sandy has a nice little vignette, vacation in France in 3 minutes. It's a cute video. It's really charming. But a strange thing happened on my way back. And I was going from Charles de Gaulle in Paris to Raleigh, North Carolina, because my girlfriend was in Raleigh. So I was going to overnight at her house and then go on to Denver. And we were at the airport and our plane was delayed like 2 hours and we could see it out there. And then it was delayed another 2 hours and another 2 hours. And I wasn't going to make my connection back to Denver. And
Oh,
and then finally, about, after they had delayed it like 6 hours, they just outright canceled it. And we knew something was really wrong. And we went and we talked to the agent at the gate. And he said, no, you do not want to get on that plane. That plane was struck by lightning coming out
unreal.
of Raleigh on the way here. When it was somewhere over the Atlantic, it was struck by lightning. And this is not supposed to happen. But the belly of the plane was like ripped where the
That's
lightning struck it. And the thunder was so loud that big dinner plate size of paint just kind of came off of the plane, like all over the nose. And it was just like, what the heck has happened to this plane? And of course, right? I mean, like any good investigative journalist or climate person, right? You want to know what the heck's going on with
yes.
that. I mean, I've been flying all my life and I've never heard of a plane being completely ripped apart and disabled by lightning. This is a whole new thing.
Woo-hoo-hoo. It is.
And so I went on, and this happened the same day that actually, I think it was right after that big tornado thing was
Yes.
in
Happening in the
that. I think
South.
that was on the Friday. And I actually have the article that we're going to cover that tornado spot. But I started thinking about it and I was like, this has got on the belly of the plane. So this plane was
Oh
up
my
in the
God.
sky. It was flying over the Atlantic Ocean and a big thing of lightning came from way under it. Who knows how many thousands of feet and found that plane and ripped its belly,
That's
right?
that's everything I read said that doesn't happen.
It
So
doesn't
it's
happen
happening now.
except when
Now
it does. It doesn't happen except when it does. So I
it
started doing
will.
some more research
Yes.
about this, and I wanted to find out the interrelationships with lightning strikes, tornadoes, and climate change, because this was all in the same front. So we're going to cover that a little
Yeah.
bit today, what I discovered, and I think you guys are going to find it super interesting. So our first article here is from Inside Climate News, and it's climate change makes lightning more likely. Here's why that's a big deal, right? Then we're going to jump over to the Washington Post, and this was actually written the day of all of those tornadoes. Here's what we know about how climate change is influencing tornadoes. And everybody here is a weather buff, and
Oh, we
I'm
are.
sure everybody
The
watches
Geek
big
Squad.
storms roll across
Yeah.
the United States, right? And they always have like this front of lightning, right? It's like the lightning is leading the way like a vanguard. And that's that tornado thing that hit the United States. So it's pretty interesting to understand bigger lightning, more tornadoes, what's up. So then we have an article from Fortune, right? And this is climate change is making the skies less friendly. Prepare for a future where you always have your
That's
seatbelt on. So
scary.
this is
It is.
bigger turbulence. And so this is just very interesting. I found it so kind of addictive to start. I actually was reading this at 2 o'clock last night. That's why I sent you those like so early in the morning, Sandy.
Yeah, it was good though. I was happy you sent them.
Right. And then we're going over to the New Scientist, Florida floods. How much rain has fallen and could it happen again? So a look at, that.
Yeah.
Then we're going to take a couple of looks at tweets. There's a tweet from Roger Hallam, and I guess I could read it, but I don't want to spoil it, but just know that that's going to be coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to run over to Yahoo Finance. Is that right, Sandy? Shark
Yeah,
Tank's
we're
Kevin
gonna.
O'Leary.
Yeah, we gotta.
Yeah?
Yeah, we're gonna make fun of this guy.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
Got it.
Oh, we
Okay,
are.
so this is Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary says he wants to build a $14 billion oil refinery and
Yeah.
predicts the U.S. won't stop using hydrocarbons for 50 years. So
Yeah,
good
this is
for
him.
you,
Do you ever
Kevin
just
O'Leary.
you ever just listen to someone and think, "Holy shit, you've got the IQ of a crayon"?
I know.
So we
I
will,
know.
yeah, we will be seeing what this clueless, to quote our friend, clueless effing moron says.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Right. And then we're going to have another article from Fortune in Yahoo Finance. We may be looking at the end of capitalism. One of the world's oldest and largest investment banks warns greedflation has gone too far.
Yeah,
So
that's
he's
kind of
predicting the worm has turned. We'll see if the worm has turned or not. Then we're going to end with a very profound article from Medium. Written by Roberto Burgos,
Yep.
why the latest on climate change is dire and probably worse than they're telling us. So, guys,
Get ready.
this is our show.
Get ready, we're back, and it's all good stuff, and it's all she's gonna weave a story with this aviation and also I am gonna put us onto the reading overlay, and we are going to pull up our first
Right.
article of the
Okay.
night. All right.
Okay. And I guess I was thinking on starting on like paragraph 3 because in the interest of
Alrighty.
time.
We will go
So,
down. Look at that picture.
Isn't that beautiful? It's incredible, actually. Right? Climate
Oh, for
change is
God's
making
sakes.
the air warmer, which allows it to hold more moisture. And both of those factors can boost the chance of thunderstorms. One major study from 2014 estimated that if warming continues at its current pace, the number of lightning strikes in the U.S. could increase by as much as 50% by the end of the century, with each additional 1 degree Celsius of warming generating about 12% more strikes.
Pretty scary.
Wow.
It
That's
is
quite
scary. I don't-
something to take on board. It's really unusual. It's like wild. Still, scientists and government officials are less concerned with lightning striking people than they are with it striking dry vegetation and igniting wildfires. Besides making the lightning itself more likely, global warming is also exacerbating drought conditions in places like the American West, where dried out grass and trees now act as the perfect kindling and where lightning strikes play an outsized role in sparking blazes.
Lovely.
Yeah. Between 1992 and 2015, more than 40% of the wildfires in the West were caused by lightning, according to the U.S. Forest Service. And in 2020, California experienced a remarkable barrage of more than 15,000 lightning strikes over just a few days, igniting more than 600 fires that burned for more than 2 million acres and destroyed thousands of homes and buildings. Jeez. In fact, study published on Monday by Washington State University researchers found that so-called dry lightning, when lightning occurs alongside less than 2.5 millimeters of rainfall, is now a leading cause of some of the biggest wildfire flare-ups in California's history. This intersection of dry conditions and lightning is becoming more common with climate change, researchers warned. It's also It's also the cause of at least 8 active wildfires in Northern California today, according to the U.S. Forest Service. Wildfires are a growing threat in California as the climate continues to warm, said somebody. Unlike human caused fires that originate in a single location, lightning outbreaks can strike multiple locations and start numerous simultaneous wildfires, creating substantial challenges for fire response. It's a scenario that's also playing out in the quickly warming Arctic, where wildfires threaten to
All
disrupt the
the
region's
time.
delicate ecosystem and trigger dangerous climate feedback loops that could spiral warming out of control. In Alaska, lightning activity has increased 17% since 1980, one 2020 study found. And ICN Bob Burren wrote another study published last year, which found that lightning strikes in the whole of the Arctic region could increase by as much as 40% for every 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit of warming. For perspective, the planet has warmed about 1.9 degrees Fahrenheit since pre industrial times. Those findings are particularly concerning considering the Arctic is already warming 4 times faster than the rest of the world, and because of the role the region plays in regulating the Earth's weather and climate. For one, think of all that snow and ice that reflects the sun's heat back into space. Not anymore. As snow and ice melt, more heat is absorbed by the planet rather than reflected away, warming it even more in a process known as Arctic amplification. As wildfires release carbon dioxide and soot into the atmosphere, they are further exacerbating climate change. The rising temperatures melt vast stretches of permafrost, unearthing caches of methane gas and other potent climate warming gases that have remained trapped in ice, in some cases for hundreds of thousands of years.
Jeez.
The warming fosters even more warming in a self-perpetuating cycle. Most important. And when it perpetuates itself by perpetuating itself, what's it called? Runaway. And that's always the question. That's the
Run, run,
runaway
run,
tipping point. Run, 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 run away.
Run away. Bye,
It's a
climate.
really vulnerable environment in the Arctic. And seeing these numbers, it's worrying. So that is that. And so we can see that lightning is getting a lot more prevalent, and it's probably getting more powerful too. If you think about bolts of lightning reaching up to a plane, I actually saw the pictures. The flight attendant opened his personal phone and he said, "You do not want to get on this plane. Look at this." And he showed me the
Jennifer.
pictures from the underbelly of the plane, which was ripped open by the lightning. And that's not supposed to
That's
happen.
not.
PS.
That's scary as
Not
shit.
supposed to happen.
It is. I don't know if it's not like I'm a frequent flyer, but I do have to go to see my mother in Florida. And I think about this shit all the time. And I thought about it
course.
when my kid was flying back from California, and she flew back in that nor'easter and had to fly into Boston. Remember? So all of these things are,
Yeah.
Hi, Paul.
That's right.
How are you? Yes. Oh, he says jet streams are affected by ozone production from UV light. Speaking of ozone, we are in the Northeast here. We have a weather advisory. It was an ozone advisory today, and I don't see those very often in April. And I was wondering, Jen, you heard about the fire in that humongous recycling plant in Indiana?
Oh, wow. No, I
Well,
didn't hear about it.
it's big, and they say it was out, but I don't know for sure. And everybody was asking me, well, what are you downwind of? And I thought, well, I looked, it's 10-hour drive to get to Indiana. It was very, very toxic. So who knows why we have an advisory here? It was pretty much all
Absolutely.
of Western New York. Yeah, I was freaked out a little bit because I don't see them very often. No,
Hmm.
no, no. So, anyhow, now
Anyway,
you are
anyhow,
going to take us into the land of tornadoes.
the land of tornadoes,
Hmm.
and you might be interested to know, how does climate change affect tornadoes in the future? And this was written on the day that that big tornado swarm
Yeah, April
hit.
2nd. I was
Yep, there you
watching
go.
Ryan
And were you?
I watched The Chasers. I'm a
Were
geek. I
you?
watch Ryan Hall and
Oh, how
all
funny.
those chasers that yeah, I do. I like it because I'm terrified. I guess I like to terrify myself since I lived
Of
through
course you do.
a tornado here.
Of
Of
course you
course
do.
I do. It's horrible.
I
And I
know.
like yeah,
I know.
I know.
Yeah, I know. It's all right.
All
It's
right,
okay.
baby. You
All
can
right.
take this one too.
All right. So here's what we know about how climate change is influencing tornadoes with a very dramatic picture. So, guys, the link between warming global temperatures and the extreme weather is clearest with unprecedented heat waves and extraordinary amounts of precipitation. While it's harder to identify the relationships between climate change and tornado outbreaks, such as the ones that killed more than 24 people across the United States on Friday and killed my plane on Saturday, scientists say that there are reasons to believe that a connection exists. There is ample evidence of increasing tornado risk during less typical stormy seasons. For example, the winter that brought record tornado activity across much of the South. New research suggests that as average temperatures rise, the sorts of intense storms that frequently spawn tornadoes are becoming more common outside parts of the Midwest, known as Tornado Alley. There was
It's
just a
changing.
tornado in Zurich, Switzerland, very recently, Sandy,
Well,
just a
that's
couple of
odd
days
because
ago.
that's not where you hear about
Zurich.
tornadoes.
No,
I
I
don't
mean,
think
a
so.
tornado in Zurich, Switzerland. I've never
Well,
heard of a tornado in Zurich, Switzerland. A recent
no.
study forecast that by 2100, the average number of supercells, massive rotating storms known for producing the most severe tornadoes, to hit the eastern United States will increase by 6.6%. That suggests more tornadoes may be likely too, but scientists aren't ready to declare it yet. I guess they need probably, like, maybe, what would you say, Sandy, 50 more years worth of evidence before they
Oh,
might want to
Jennifer.
commit to that, you know? So they say there is nothing concrete to say, yes, we're going to see more tornadoes, so they can't say it. I don't know why.
I don't
There
know
here
either.
here are the factors influencing when and how often tornadoes are forming. Warming temperatures mean more storm fuel. Average
Mm-hmm.
global temperatures have risen more than 1.1 degrees Celsius since the 1800s, and the impact is clear. Warmer air provides more energy for storms to develop and intensify, and holds more moisture, which can also fuel storms. Warm, moist air is a key ingredient for developing severe tornadic storms. Such storms arise from too much instability in the lower atmosphere, a clash between the warm and muggy air close to the ground and cooler, drier air on top of it. Storms form as a way to restore equilibrium in the atmosphere. In practice, it means warm air rapidly rises into the cold layer above it, while cold air rushes towards the ground. This movement is what triggers precipitation, as moisture in the warm air condenses, and it can also produce rotation within storms, which can turn into tornadoes. A warming climate means that more of that instability is there. And it is, let's see, the warmer the air is closer to the ground, the greater the temperature difference within the air above it, and the more likely it will rise and stir violent atmospheric clashes. So that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Good takeaway point. Number
Violent.
two,
Violent.
tornado season may be longer and move farther
Like
east.
my house.
Interesting. Interesting, right? A warming climate doesn't necessarily change much about the potential for summer storms when hot, muggy conditions make afternoon storms more common. But it's likely to have an impact at times of year in parts of the country where temperatures have historically been too cold to produce severe storm activity. Tornadoes can happen all the time of the year in parts of the United States, but the traditional tornado season occurs from March through May, to a lesser extent in November, October, November, when the weather is in a period of transition and differences in air temperature and moisture levels are more likely. Increasingly, mild U.S. winters mean atmospheric instability necessary for tornadic storms and may be present more often in early spring and late fall. Study published in January in the Bulletin of American Meteorological Society found that it could translate into 61% more supercells in March and 46% more of them in April. It found increasing tornadic storm risks in the southeast, with decreasing chances in the states such as Oklahoma and Kansas, which I find so interesting. So, Oklahoma and Kansas, Dorothy country, actually tornadic activity may be decreasing there, which is fascinating. The researchers developed the predictions by modeling storm activity based on warming projections for cooling the coming decades. Walker Ashley, the study's lead author and professor of meteorology and disaster geography at Northern Illinois University, told the Associated Press that he believes this shift is already underway.
Good writing. Yeah.
The data that I've seen has persuaded me that we are in this experiment and living it right now, he told AP 3 days before an EF4 tornado killed more than 24 people in Mississippi. What we're seeing in the longer term is actually occurring right now. So, some trends could put a cap on storm development. There are potential factors limiting storm and tornado development, however. Another ingredient important for tornado development is known as vertical wind shear. That is differences in wind speeds, very scary. Differences in wind speed at varying altitudes, higher levels of shear, meaning bigger differences in wind speed, help storms to organize into supercells and develop the rotation needed for tornadoes. Wind shear is expected to decrease as a result of climate change, says Kimberly Hoogwind, a research scientist at University of Oklahoma. It is driven by a contrast between the warm air close to the equator and the cold air in the Arctic, she said, and this gap is narrowing as polar regions rapidly warm. And then there is the phenomena meteorologists refer to an atmospheric lid on storms. If the layer of air a mile or two above the ground becomes too warm, then too much energy is required for hot and muggy air beneath it to rise and trigger storms. Climate change could make that lid effect, known as convective inhibition, stronger. Still, it's not clear if those influences will mean fewer tornadoes. As long as wind shear and convective inhibition allow storm development on days when storm fuel is present, then tornado risk will continue to occur. Wow. The jury's still out on this. Okay. Tornado trends are hard to pinpoint. A central challenge complicates any analysis of what could drive or inhibit tornado formation. As ferocious as they can be, tornadoes are tiny phenomena compared to the scale of planetary warming. Complex models are used to project future weather in a changing climate. And while they can give a reasonable sense of how averages and extremes will shift, it is difficult to translate into something taking over just a few miles. It's not a matter of feet. There are small scale, we don't even know how to think about them on a climate scale, but it's fundamentally hard. Not sure about that last little bit, but yeah, tornadoes are increasing, and we will probably see more destruction like that was seen in Mississippi in the coming years, accompanied by
It
more light.
was yeah, more lightning. It was insane. And
Yeah.
there's so much on Twitter. I didn't have time to download it or do any of it, to show, but
Yeah.
the lightning and the way these tornadoes looked, Jennifer,
Mhm.
it was these guys are crazy. These storm chasers. They're a little
Oh,
nutty.
yeah. Oh, they're
Well,
they're nuts. They're
this
absolutely
article, but
nuts.
they're wonderful because they're doing store fundraisers and they bring all kinds of
Mhm.
supplies to people. These people lost everything. Can you imagine? I
Oh,
mean, their whole house
yeah.
is just leveled. Everything's gone. Goodbye. And with
Horrible.
tornadoes, there's no warning. Not like hurricanes. Hurricanes, we know for days. They're percolating out in the ocean. They're going to come in. Tornado, you don't know. You don't know where it's going to hit. It's
Yeah.
unpredictable. You get the tornado warning. You got an hour. You
Yeah.
got an hour. I mean,
Yeah.
if that. So it's really serious, I think. And the people that are, I feel terrible for them, and
Mhm.
the animals. Oh my God! And there were stories of animals, Jennifer, that actually just
Mhm.
got thrown around and walked away. I mean, that's the good
Um,
stuff. Yeah, but at least the Washington Post has the money to get some decent writers. Not everybody
yeah,
has
no,
it,
that was
and it was a good article. There were 148 comments. I can't even
oh, wow.
imagine. Yeah, I can't. I didn't look at the comments. Sometimes I do,
Yeah.
just to see what people are feeling. And then
Mhm.
we're going to this one.
Right.
This
Going over to
one.
Fortune, the
Yeah, I
climate
sent.
change is making the skies less friendly.
Yeah, I sent this to
No,
my
no
brother.
more flying the friendly skies, right?
No, we'll be flying like this, and I'll be going because I'm not going to fly if I don't have to. I don't even want to leave my property, but I know what happens. I mean, it happens. It feels different. The last time
Yeah,
I flew, it felt different, and
yeah,
and we all have to, I guess, eventually just say we're not going to. But everybody lives so far away. That's the way our society, our culture, has been created for everybody to go far. So you have to fly to see the people you love, or Zoom them.
yes,
Okay. So
yes.
you want me to
So,
take this one, or you want to take this one?
sure. I mean, either way, you just decide,
You're
tell me
doing
what you
really well. Go
want.
ahead. I love
All right,
this. You're
guys, we're
back.
going to run over to Fortune. Climate change is making the skies less friendly. Prepare for a future where you always have your seatbelt on.
Yeah, because you're going like
Okay.
this.
Yeah, and let's see, this was written, oh yeah, this
Barf
was written April 4th. So this was written
bags.
the day after that tornado thing
Yeah, buy
swept.
stock in barf bags.
God, yuck, yuck, yuck. In his early days in the business,
Oh
aviation
boy.
expert John Nance used to make tornado alley runs as he and other pilots with Braniff Airlines called them. They would involve multiple takeoffs and landings in places like Kansas City and Wichita
Oh.
on the way to Minneapolis and back, traversing the Midwest corridor in which weather conditions could become treacherous on short notice. There were times that you get these massive fronts moving laterally west to east across the United States, and we would be having to pick our way through them, said Nance, now an author, speaker on ABC News, aviation analyst, told me, I've been in situations where I had to divert as far as Denver to get around them coming back to Dallas. In an era of rapid climate change, those might well be the good old days. What pilots face in 2023, experts say, is a different order of challenge altogether. An increase in both frequency and the intensity of climate related issues, coupled with a pronounced lack of pilot training in key areas.
Uh-huh.
Clear air turbulence is taking us by surprise. Global warming is altering the math of these issues. Over the
Mm.
past 4 decades, vertical wind shear over the North Atlantic has increased 15%, according to research. That's interesting, Sandy, because that's also Well, the North Atlantic, I mean, that's
10%,
increased 15%. Wow.
15%.
This results in more
Okay.
unstable air at play within the jet streams that move across the US, often at the same altitudes where commercial and private aircraft commonly travel. And the researchers noted that the busy transatlantic flight corridor will be similarly affected. Several recent incidents have riveted public attention on the issue. But while turbulence, lightning strikes, and storms have always been a small piece of the air experience, that piece is growing. A Lufthansa flight from Texas to Germany diverted to Dulles Airport earlier last month after encountering turbulence that sent 7 people to the hospital. The
Scary.
yeah, the pilot of a Hawaiian Airlines flight, on which dozens were injured later, noted that a cloud shot up vertically in front of the aircraft like a smoke plume
That's
while it was
terrifying.
flying through smooth, clear air at
God.
38,000 feet. There's not supposed to be big clouds up at
No,
38,000 feet, but this
no.
just shot up in front of him like a smoke plume. Think about it. A Southwest flight bound for Raleigh, North Carolina. This is where my plane came out of. It was the shuttle between Paris and Raleigh. Had to be diverted to a South Carolina airport after violently shaking as it got as low as 1,350 feet while
Wow.
attempting to
That's
land in bad
yeah.
weather.
That's
Yeah,
low. That's low. My nephew's a
yeah.
pilot for FedEx. I gotta ask him.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask him
Cle-
what they're training.
Yeah. Clean air turbulence, so named because it's not part of any storm system and therefore isn't visualized before a plane flies into it, can be wildly problematic. The planes themselves withstand the force remarkably well, but passengers and crew, especially those who aren't wearing seatbelts at the time of the encounter and
Are
get
gonna go.
thrown around the cabin, can be left with significant injuries and trauma. You should plan for a future in which you've always got your seatbelt on while flying.
I don't want to
Clear
go anywhere.
Clear air turbulence is invisible not only to the naked eye, but also onboard weather radar. It is one of the few weather phenomena that render the radar completely useless. Often, the first indication that there's any clear air turbulence on a flight path is when the aircraft is already flying through it. Those are headline making events, but the larger record keeping on all of this is incomplete. According to data provided to the Federal Aviation Administration, only 34 domestic passengers and 129 crew suffered serious turbulence injuries between 2009 and 2022. Meanwhile, National Transportation and Safety Board reported that turbulence accounted for more than a third of all accidents on large commercial airlines from 2009 to 2018. However, NTSB requires airlines only to report the most serious outcomes, and the FAA does not track general incidents of turbulence. The compounded effects of climate change. Okay. Air travel is, of course, one of the drivers of climate change in its own right. Greenhouse gas emissions from the commercial air travel, which account 3 to 4% of the US total,
Mm.
are running well ahead of earlier projections. The UN estimates that global airplane emissions of carbon dioxide will triple by 2050.
Oh, that's nice. So crash
Ugh,
and burn
ugh,
and get back up again.
ugh. While the industry is beginning to make noises about turning sustainable aviation fuel and electrified or hydrogen powered aircraft to decarbonize the process of flying, that is a long, slow turn. In the here and now, post pandemic air travel is on the rebound. Bumpy air, even violently bumpy air, is not all pilots are dealing with in a climate changed sky. Nance, the aviation expert who has written extensively on the
Really?
topic, notes that in addition, the additions of CO2 and trace gases in the atmosphere have resulted in higher levels of heat transfers overall. What that means is that you energize the storms to a greater extent. You're going to have hotter hots, colder colds, more energetic hurricanes and typhoons, and cyclonic disturbances. You're going to have thunderstorms arising that are much more energetic. John Knox, who studies and teaches and writes about atmospheric dynamics at the University of Georgia, added, "The bottom line is that aviation will be affected in several different ways by climate change, and experts are concerned. Not all turbulence is the clear air variety. Much of it is the result of kinds of thunderstorms that John Nance and his Braniff colleagues long ago strove to avoid.
Mm.
In this supercharged atmosphere, Knox said turbulence will increase in the vicinity of these storms because climate change will provide more energy thanks to more water evaporating from warmer oceans, which juices the storms. So, yeah. So the
Damn.
storms, damn, baby, damn. So the storms are more energized. The wind shears are more dramatic. The jet streams are more unstable. Lightning strikes or static discharges, like the one that struck the plane when a family member of mine was flying several weeks ago, are going to become more common too. They're expected to increase by 50% in the US by the end of the century, with each 1 degree Celsius of warming producing about 12% more strikes. Wow. So there's all sorts of things that happen with the warming, right? All these things. It's wetter in the atmosphere, it's 12% more strikes, it's all this crazy stuff. It all means that air travel conditions are becoming slightly more uncertain. Although experts say that today's aircraft are built to withstand heavy wind shear and can generally pass a lightning strike through and out of the plane with little residual effect, these planes don't fly empty. They're filled with passengers, crew members, and pilots themselves, part of whose job it is to keep the aircraft out of the worst of the weather. Are the pilots ready for it? The
Big
result?
question.
A perfect storm kind of scenario, said Shem Malmquist, an international Boeing 777 captain, flight instructor, and veteran accident and safety investigator. The quality and quantity of training for pilots on weather and weather radar is, well, dismal,
Oh, jeez.
is the
That's
most
nice.
positive thing I can say. The airline has very little training to teach pilots how to avoid weather systems and how to avoid thunderstorms. Oh dear.
So they
They
need a
don't
whole new academic wing of meteorology. I don't know if they have it, but
yeah,
people aren't
they
going to
don't
stop flying, guys. You know as well as we do. People aren't stopping.
they don't teach pilots how to use weather radar. I mean,
I
the pilots pick it up on their own. For decades, pilots have been flying around storms or other issues.
That's what they
We
do.
have aircraft radar, and the FAA has their own radar, so we can generally work our way around thunderstorms. But both these guys believe that there is a worrisome dynamic at work. Radar technology is rapidly evolving, and pilot training isn't keeping up with it. Pilots get basically no training on weather radar
That's-
or even weather
Yeah.
itself. What's wrong
That
with this
is definitely then they're going to
What's
have to
wrong with
bring
this picture?
meteorology courses to the pilots. They're going to have to. It's changing, and they better do it fast. That's why I'm going to ask my nephew what they teach him. What does he learn? What is he flying through for FedEx? He doesn't fly people. He flies shit.
Yeah,
He flies
yeah,
capitalism around.
yeah. So the problem The problem is that weather is complex and we're learning new things. The weather radar systems that manufacturers are producing are now very different from what they were building the last 10 or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's almost no training on how to use this new type of system. Pilots are type A motivated and they'll find the information and study it on their own. But the airline certainly is not providing that training. I'm just like, really? That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, do they wait, where's our magical our that was our kitty. I'm looking for
Oh, oh,
our magical thinking and I can't find it.
okay, okay.
That's what they have. Magical
Yeah,
thinking. It's just going to learn. They're going to teach it. It's just going to learn. They're just going to know.
yeah, yeah. In response to a series of questions about pilot training, an FAA spokesman emailed a statement that said pilots must undergo extensive initial and recurrent training on a wide range of subjects, including weather radar systems on their flight decks. And let's see. This is a conversation that seems likely to evolve even as the airlines push to get more pilots through their training and into commercial cockpits. Commercial pilots require 1,500 flight hours to be certified in the US, a minimum threshold that was put in place in the wake of a crash
I
in
remember that.
Buffalo
Oh, that
in
was horrible.
2009.
It wasn't that far from where I worked. It was
Oh,
horrible.
no.
Oh no, it was terrible. It was in
Oh,
Lockport. It was
oh
awful.
my.
Oh, Jennifer. Mm-hmm.
Oh, oh, and reaffirmed recently despite airline requesting the FAA to lower it. But the pilots say not much of the training that coincides with those flight hours centers around the weather technologies that are likely to become more important over the decades to come. As we move into the future with more turbulent atmosphere, I am concerned about the safety of passengers and flight attendants on large commercial aircraft. Wow.
Yeah, they've got that
So,
magical thinking. It's just going to
yeah.
happen by itself. All right.
One more little paragraph here. Enhanced training on weather radar won't solve all of that. It
No.
certainly makes sense in a world already dealing with the escalating evolution of climate change and the effects on weather patterns. You're looking at more storms, more lightning, more turbulence. And
That
there's
was
a
good.
clear and documented evidence statistically that it's all happening more frequently. It's an irrefutable fact at this point.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was good. Fortune magazine, the rich people are talking about it because it's
Yeah,
inconveniencing them. And maybe they're getting a little scared.
that's right.
The billionaires that fly everywhere, like get on the plane. Oh my God. Well, listen, what I want to do now, and this is a little odd, Jennifer, because here we are talking about how screwed up it is, and I want to play the movie of your trip. But actually, you would not have realized this whole topic if you didn't witness it.
I have some of my biggest revelations on these transcontinental flights. That's when I
Wow.
woke up when I flew over Greenland in 2012
Yes,
and the whole thing was melting down.
that's right.
So,
She
you
woke
know,
up. You're woke. Oh my God.
woke.
You're woke. All right. Well, now everybody, I want you all to enjoy a little trip. We're going to move away from being scared and upset, and we're going to look at some beauty, and then Jennifer can talk about it after we play the little video that I put together for her. Okay. Just 1 second. Here we go.
was very cute. Thanks for putting
Thank
that
you for
together.
taking us there.
Oh,
Thank you
yeah.
for taking
So
us
there was a
there.
question. Melanie Dennis said, "Is this the France they are now striking?" Yes. And when I got these tickets many months ago, I had no idea that all of France would be under protest, that all the rails would be on strike. And try to go to Provence, and we were in its like Avignon. I don't know if you all have ever taken the TGV, the speed train. Why we in the US don't have that, I have no idea. It's brilliant. But you can basically get on at the Charles de Gaulle airport in Paris and take the speed train directly to Avignon, get off. It's like 3 hours. And from there, you're at the hub of all these different like trains that go to all these other towns, except if the trains are all on strike, which was the
Jeez.
case when we were there. And there were shouting and things like that, but Avignon itself was chill. I heard that Paris was very big strikes and things on fire and riots and
Well,
all that stuff.
you went somewhere to have some solace and peace and
Yeah,
beauty.
yeah,
And that
yeah.
was what you did, and you
But
accomplished it.
But what they were striking
Hmm.
about was because the retirement pension age
Yeah.
in France was 62, Macron had raised it to 64, and because they didn't like that, he did it without, I guess, parliamentary oversight, and they're calling him a king. He thinks he's a king, which is a bad thing in France, seeing as they chopped off, Louis the 16th's head. Yeah, being a king is not like that
No.
safe. Um, but anyway, so France was really in uproar while we were there. So the couple of days that we did go out to Aix-en-Provence, one day in Nîmes, another day, um, we had to go on buses. And so everything was like the trains were just shut down. And that's, les grèves, the French love to strike. And that's what they generally do, is
Well,
to
I
make their
wish
voices
that
heard.
the Americans would like to strike, and I wish everybody would try to get something done and changed in our political system here, but we are numb. We are all comfortably numb. Yeah, Christopher says the French know how to protest. Yeah, and
Yeah, they really do.
they're upset about 64 and the United States. Well, I think it's just going to be death. I mean, the other day there was an accident, Jennifer.
Oh,
That
yeah.
when the stuff from East Palestine, the truck, the dirty toxic soil was being transported away from East Palestine. I don't know much about it, but the driver of the truck that had all this responsibility for toxic stuff, and this is not ageist, but he was 74 and he had a crash, rolled over, and all that toxic soil now is polluting the highway somewhere in outside of Ohio. I mean, it sucks. And I'm not being ageist, but why does he have to drive a truck with that kind of responsibility at age 74 when he should be retired? And that's what's happening here. People have to keep doing these jobs. And so now we have a mess. I felt bad for the guy because, they're going to pin it on him instead of who, yeah, right, retro boomer. He should have been retired and enjoying his life, not driving a truck with like
Full of toxic
Yeah,
substance.
I mean the wildlife there. I haven't followed up, Jennifer, but I'm going to follow up on it anyway. So
Yeah.
no. All right.
Yeah.
So where are we going? We are headed to another place. We are headed now to Florida since it happened. It happened when you were gone. And everybody's a little, weird over this one too because getting, what is it, 24 inches of rain in 6 hours in Fort
Mhm.
Lauderdale. So I know a lot of you know about what's going on, but we'll look at New Scientist and Florida floods, how much rain has fallen, and could it happen again? And you know what I forgot to ask, Jennifer?
Mm.
I forgot to ask anybody out there if they had any questions about what they saw in the video to ask you. I'm
Mm.
sorry because it was so lovely.
Oh, well, I could just tell you that those were pictures that were taken throughout Provence. Some of those pictures were from Nîmes, where you saw that big Colosseum. We also saw Pont de Gare, which is 2,000 years old, the
Oh,
old
it's
Roman
beautiful.
aqueduct. Yeah, the Romans really built to last. And, various little hill towns in France, Roussillon, Gourdes. We saw Vue de Source. It's the biggest spring in France. Those were that water is rushing right out of the rocks. It's the biggest spring actually in Europe. Is We went to see it.
Wow,
It's very
that was
interesting.
pretty.
And it's also Neanderthal country. It's also early human country. It's Paleolithic countries. There are loads of caves. There's loads of early human remains, which I just think is so fascinating. Yeah.
The early human remains. Is there a
Early
museum
human.
there? Is there a museum
Oh,
there
loads of them. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
early human museum?
Early human remain. Yeah. And
Wow.
those early caves, and we're talking, 25, 30,
Yeah.
35,000 years ago. um, that age. And of course, the Neanderthals were in this area of France for probably 300,000 years. I mean, much longer than human beings have existed. I
Oh,
mean,
history.
Homo sapiens, right?
Amazing
The
history.
Neanderthals were the ancient humans, and they only have been gone 30,000 years. Their last stronghold was in Gibraltar, and they probably were snuffed out by Homo sapiens, no doubt.
Yeah. There you
And we
go.
do carry vestiges of Neanderthal genes, especially those of us who are European, in our very cells. So each of us is a couple percent Neanderthal due to interbreeding.
That's
Yeah.
interesting stuff. Well,
Hmm.
thanks for sharing it. I'm sorry I didn't ask right after the presentation.
Yeah.
Forgive me,
No
for I
problem.
have sinned. Okay. Now we're going to go to Florida and we're going to look at the mess that's down there. And which we all know because everybody, again, we're all weather nerds and buffs, but
Hmm.
the heavy rain, it deluged southern Florida and it forced the U.S. National Weather Service to declare a flash flood emergency and triggering the total shutdown of Fort Lauderdale Airport. Oh my God. There's so much going on around the world, but we're drilling into Fort Lauderdale. The meteorologists say the rainfall is likely to have smashed local records and to have been driven in part by escalating climate change. What else? Here's what we know about what has happened and whether such events can be predicted. How much rain has fallen in Florida? And by the way, part of Florida is in a drought still. Over 50 centimeters of rain fell on Fort Lauderdale in southern Florida in the space of just 6 hours on the 12th of April, according to the U.S. National Weather Service. More than one-third of the city's annual rainfall and equivalent to the annual rainfall of London. And that's a lot. The total rainfall over the day may have well been higher. A weather stem station at Fort Lauderdale Airport showed that almost 66 centimeters of rain fell at the station in the 24 hours up to 7 a.m. local time on the 13th of April. So it's just a couple of days yesterday. The intense downpours came after days of wet weather in Florida, which is still supposed to be in its 8-month dry season where average rainfall is only 7.6 centimeters a month. So Nicholas Bors at the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research in Germany says the extreme rain was a very, very highly unusual event to happen for Florida, particularly in the dry season. Which areas have been affected? The heavy rains quickly overwhelmed city drainage systems in the region, turned roads and rivers and flooding homes. Rivers, just torrents of water. Some 22,000 residents were without electricity at one point on April 12th. The worst of the damage has been around Fort Lauderdale, where transport networks were effectively just shut down. Fort Lauderdale Airport has been closed since the afternoon of the 12th of April, and it will remain so. So at midday, they probably open today. Meanwhile, South Florida's high-speed commuter rail service Brightline is also shut down. Some 330 schools across Broward County, which covers Fort Lauderdale and Miami, were closed on the 13th of April because of the hazardous conditions. So further showers and thunderstorms are forecast for the 13th of April, which was yesterday, and an additional 5 to 10 centimeters of rain possible, according to the U.S. National Weather Service. There is very little city officials can do to minimize disruption when huge rainstorms like this deluge a city, said Boris. If you have a very, very high amounts of water coming down in a very short amount of time, then it's very difficult for those water amounts to infiltrate the soil, he says. It's the nightmare for climate impact adaptation planners because there's basically nothing you can do. I'm surprised they didn't fire them all in Florida, Ron DeSantis. Do you think he believes in it? How does so much rain fall in such a concentrated area? The rain was caused by a collection of slow-moving thunderstorms that gathered over Florida on the 12th of April. Such extreme rainstorms are becoming increasingly common as the climate changes. In 2021, an intense rainstorm stalled over Germany and Belgium for 2 days, causing catastrophic flooding. Remember that, Jennifer? Mm-hmm. China, Italy, and New York have also experienced similar floods from extreme rainfall in recent years, and we've reported on all of them. I know I made the video last year with China in it. The increase in rainfall intensity is due to climate-induced rising temperatures, says Hayley Fowler at Newcastle University in the UK. Warmer atmosphere holds more moisture, increasing the frequency and intensity of the storms. The capacity to hold these bigger downpours is there in terms of increased ability of the atmosphere to hold moisture, she said. There is also some evidence to suggest that climate change is making storms more likely to stall, leading them to deposit their rain in concentrated areas, raising the risk of flash flooding. So can we forecast these events? The likelihood of extreme rainfall is one of the trickiest weather events for climate scientists and meteorologists to forecast. One problem is that their climate models seem to underestimate the potential increased severity of rainfall as the climate warms. Researchers modeling climate change's impact on rainfall rely on the Clausius-Clapeyron equation, which calculates that every degree of warming in the atmosphere should result in a 7% increase in the intensity of rainfall. But a recent extreme rainfall events, they seem to be releasing more water than that, says Fowler, suggesting that something is amiss with climate modeling in this area. So, for example, Jennifer, what do you think?
Yeah, amiss. Something is amiss.
Well, I know that I read an article also about shoring up and making these models work a lot better. So let's hope we get better modeling. But for example, I think we have pretty good stuff, but it probably always can be better. For example, a study in 2022 found that climate change increased rainfall during the hardest raining North Atlantic hurricane of 2020 by 11%, almost twice what would have been expected by the Clausius-Clapeyron equation. The sort of downpours that we are seeing seem to show much bigger changes than that equation, potentially, says Fowler. So there's something else going on that we are not able to capture in our weather forecast models or our climate models. Fowler is among teams of scientists now studying how to tweak them so that they don't underestimate the potential severity of those future rainstorms. So she thinks that they're missing something very important.
You think? Could it be? Could it be?
Yeah, I think. And I think what we're going to do is move on to Roger Hallam, because we're talking about all of this, and on Twitter, he's talking about the scientists, and this is quick. We're not going to go through the whole thing. It was a pretty quick thing, but he was talking about the reason scientists, and he said we scientists don't say billions will die, is nothing to do with the science, but the politeness culture of elite educated scientists. All the following are actually saying billions will die, but put in other words.
That's
Now,
true.
it was contentious, though, there, here, but he said, Sir David King, what we do know is if we don't manage the climate change issue, the biggest challenge is going to be feeding the global population. Number 3, climate human, which is Peter Kalmus. Billions of lives are at stake, including the lives of people we love or even our own lives. Then yes, risking arrest to try to stop that through nonviolent civil disobedience is probably worth it for a lot of us. And he's really becoming quite a civil disobedient person. And
Is he?
well, yeah, he's been arrested a few times in LA and he still has his job. So I don't know. He still has his job. Number 4, James Dyke. People are oblivious. Oh, let's see here. Okay. There he is. People are oblivious to the fact that we have already produced irreversible climate change. The Holocene is over. What we do next determines what sort of future we have, indeed, if we have any sort of future on the planet Earth. Number 5, just stop oil. Get involved. And then basically the rest of it was just all of people, just commenting. But I thought it was worthy of a look. I did. What do you think, Jed?
No,
Worthy
absolutely. And
worthy of a look?
it's very interesting what Roger Hallam says, the science, but the politeness culture of elite educated scientists. Okay. The reason we scientists don't say billions will die has nothing to do with the science, but politeness culture of elite educated scientists. It's impolite to say the truth. So,
That's,
you know,
I know. And, earlier Jean had a comment. I think I,
is that right?
oh, here it is. I'm going to put it up. They all were saying today, well, in the Ice Age, a lot of people died then too. I thought, quote, what is the point in educating them on the truth? So that's an interesting thing to ponder, which is what we like
It
to
is.
We
Well,
like
I mean,
to
you know,
educate.
since the beginning of time when there was physicality and life, creatures have died. Does
Yeah.
that mean you have to destroy your environment for
No.
everybody for all time, for all
No.
creatures?
No.
You know?
Nope.
I mean, they're just really idiotic things.
Okay.
Do you
Well,
just ever listen to someone and think, holy shit, you've got the IQ of a crayon?
yeah, this is the next guy. He might be rich, but we're moving on and we're going to do it. This is quick. This is just because we have to go into the Moronocene for a little
Okay.
bit, just a few minutes. This guy on Shark Tank, I had to bring everybody back to, a little something humorous because he says, oh, he's going to build a $14 billion oil refinery and he predicts the U.S. won't stop using hydrocarbons for 50 years. Well, he may be right there, but he wants to build up infrastructure. So his name is Kevin O'Leary. And he says, unfortunately, no matter how much you think we're getting off hydrocarbons, it's not going to happen for 50 years. The investor and star of the television show Shark Tank told Fox businesses, the big money show on Tuesday, dismissing renewable energies as not going to work. So he pledged to invest in a new oil refinery in the U.S., saying he wanted to support the country's energy independence. I got to put my hand over my heart for that one. He suggested that he was looking for a state that wants to work with me to build the new facility, which he says will be $14 billion. So what state do you think that'll be, Jennifer? Will it be Florida or Texas? It sounds like it would probably be Texas, wouldn't it? Because Texas, So anyway, you guys get the drill. The guy, he says he dismissed a complete rejection of hydrocarbons as impossible. And actually, that is true. I mean, we are not going to be able to just say, okay, tomorrow we're off and we can. I mean, there's huge problems. And I'm bringing on a guest named Simon Michaud who's going to explain all about energy and all about these problems. And I'm interviewing him next week. But this is compelling. but he says the U.S. Energy Information Administration projects that the U.S. will produce an average of 12.4 million barrels a day in 2023, which would exceed the record levels from 2019. But oil executives worry that the U.S. production will increase much beyond that, citing constraints in refining and regulatory issues. We don't have the potential to grow U.S. production ever again, Scott Sheffield, CEO of oil exploration company Pioneer Natural Resources, he told CNBC. So basically, this guy, Jennifer, this Fox Shark Tank guy, he's
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's crazy people with a lot of money.
That's
Crazy
right.
people. Now, I don't know if we want to do this one. I mean, do you want to do this one or go right on to the last one? Because this one, even though it fits,
Just
it's a long one, and we want to let
no.
you guys know we're going to
No
leave.
spells no.
Yeah,
Out you go.
we're leaving greedflation because I want
Bye
Jennifer
bye.
to bring us up with this one.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
guys. So we're
guys.
going to bring up the caboose here, guys. Strap in. Here we go. So this is from medium.com, just out on April 3rd from Roberto Burgos. Why the latest on climate change is dire and probably worse than they're telling us. I know. Worse than they're telling us sounds a bit conspiratorial. After all, conspiracy theories always contain a they, some
Right.
mysterious group of powerful individuals hiding behind some unknown reason or curtains of world power, manipulating the masses for nefarious reasons. To the most rational and intelligent people, these ideas may sound fringe and bogus. Conspiracy theory usually refers to some belief for which there is little or no verifiable evidence, just blind faith in the claims of some wacko televangelist, influencer, YouTuber, or something we got from our cults or religions.
Our cult, Jennifer. Remember, we're a cult. I've been called a cult, you know.
Oh yeah, I know, I know. I so sorry, Sandy, but I'm there with you, girl. I'm there with you. We're just a doomist channel.
Oh
What can
my
you
God.
say? We're addicted to reality.
Yeah,
What
but
can
we're
you
just
say?
just no labels. That's all. No labels.
No,
No
no
labels.
labels. So, what I'm about to write is not a conspiracy theory, but a simple observation. No, I am not a climate scientist, though I did learn a thing or two about it in college and from books by climatologists, and I've been fascinated with the topic for years, like all of us guys, right? But one thing I've learned by reading up on scientific journals is that if even all industrial activity stopped today, which would, of course, be good regardless, we would still be experiencing warming for quite some time, possibly even a few hundred years. That is why I was surprised to see what I read in a recent New York Times article about the latest IPCC report. The NYT article states that scientists say warming will largely halt once humans stop adding heat trapping gases to the
Okay.
atmosphere. Not going to happen.
No.
The report in mention was pretty dire, but that single phrase from the New York Times almost made me cringe because of how inaccurate it is. Why is such a credible and highly respected source of elite media making such misleading claims? Sounds nice, but there's a problem. Actually, a few of them. Now, there is no doubt that we must stop emitting carbon and methane emissions into the atmosphere as soon as possible. But the idea that warming will halt once humans stop adding greenhouse gases into the atmosphere is akin to something out of fairy tales.
Definitely.
Yeah, really. We need that. Oh, you found it.
I found
All right. It could take many decades, up to a century or even more, for temperatures to go down, even if all human industrial activity suddenly came to a screeching halt, which, Sandy, is exactly what we have been saying on this channel for years and years and
And
years.
I'm not proud that it's happening. I mean,
I wish it
nobody's gloating.
wasn't.
Nobody's
We're not
gloating.
trying to be a doomist channel.
No.
We're trying to say what's true. We're not. We're realists, not cultists.
No.
Get a grip.
Get a grip. All right. I got a grip.
For one, it takes about a decade for one single emission of CO2 to have its maximum warming effect on our planet, which means that the warming we are getting today is from emissions released into the atmosphere about the time people thought the world was going to end because of the Mayan calendar. Barack Obama was still in his first term, and Amy Winehouse still refused to go to rehab. So just to put a context on it. This means that even if we stopped polluting today, the heating effect of the emissions released yesterday wouldn't even be felt until the early to mid 2030s. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
I'd love
Plus,
to.
in 2013, research from Princeton University published in a journal, Nature Climate Change, stated that it could take many decades, up to a century or even more, for temperatures to go down, even if all human industrial activities suddenly came to a screeching halt.
Oh, I wish I had a screeching halt noise. I don't have it.
Yeah,
Oh,
forgot
shoot.
about that momentum. Oh shit, it's still warming. I already screeched to a halt. What's going on? But according to the research, about 100 years after such a hypothetical occurrence took place, the Earth may begin to warm again, albeit slightly, for an additional 400 years, due to the ocean's decreasing ability to continue absorbing atmospheric heat.
Bingo.
The feedbacks that keep feeding us. Then there's something called the feedback loops, a phenomenon most mainstream media outlets seem reluctant to discuss and conveniently forget. It's like short-term memory disorder or something. They remember it for 5 minutes and then they forget all about it. It's very crazy.
Yeah. They're silly. Silly.
Silly. One such feedback loop comes from the melting sea ice in the North Pole. For millions of years, the ice cover over the Arctic Ocean has normally accumulated snow, and lots of it. All of the snow reflects much of the solar radiation hitting the Earth back into space, keeping the entire planet relatively cool, known as the albedo effect. But as human activities warm the planet, the Arctic is warming 3 times faster, 5 times faster, I think, now. 4 or 5.
It was 4
And as
or
the
5,
4 or
yes.
5, depending on where you are.
Exponential, Jennifer, like you
It's
like to say.
bigger. Big. It's big.
It's big.
Big.
Yeah. Big.
And as the Arctic sea ice melts away, less solar radiation is reflected back into space and more is absorbed into the open ocean, accelerating global warming. Then there's the issue of the melting permafrost.
Oh, that.
It shouldn't be melting, it should be thawing, right? Thawing permafrost. Or ground that remains frozen year-round in places like Siberia, Greenland, Alaska, and the Canadian Arctic. This permafrost is thawing at such a much faster rate than scientists previously thought. The melting Earth in these areas is already causing damage as roads and entire buildings have collapsed into the ground, which had previously been frozen for thousands of years until now. It appears we've created a kind of snowball that may now be rolling down a metaphorical slope on its own. Over 1,500 gigatons of carbon is stored in the world's permafrost. That's twice as much as the atmosphere currently contains. As it thaws, bacteria break down the organic matter that has been there for thousands of years, and that's how CO2 and methane are gradually unleashed into the atmosphere, trapping even more solar radiation and warming the planet even faster, which has the potential to raise global temperatures by an additional zero point 0.5 C. An additional zero point 0.5 C may sound modest, but it's enough to wreak havoc on our
It
planetary climate
is.
systems. Global heating is also causing more wildfires, which produce smoke and, of course, more planet warming greenhouse gas emissions, which heats the planet even more, which produces water vapor from the warming oceans, which also traps more solar radiation, warming the planet even more, which melts more permafrost, which releases more methane, which produces more heat, which causes more wildfires, which produces more heat, which produces more water vapor, dot, dot, dot. Of course, the original source of global warming are
Mm.
human industrial activities and food production, especially meat production, but it appears we've created a kind of snowball that may now be rolling down a metaphorical slope on
Wow.
its own, gaining mass with each passing second. And there's a good chance that that snowball, perhaps fireball would be more appropriate, is now unstoppable regardless of what we do.
Oof.
Ugh. Whether that's the cause or not is still up for debate. But one thing's for sure: warming will not halt, even if we were suddenly to stop using electricity, driving cars, flying jumbo jets, farming animals for food, and may take centuries before temperatures go back to pre industrial levels, if they do so at all, considering the snowball, quote, fireball effect that our inaction may have allowed.
Mm.
The question is, why are they not being honest? All too often, these feedback loops are not even added into the equation in modern day climate modeling. And it appears the IPCC assessments are hesitant to factor them in as well. Mainstream journalists appear to think that reporting on the subject will be like, well, playing with fire. But why? Well, for one, by introducing the feedback loops, which are
Mm.
already happening, into climate predictions, the big picture may look a bit too dire, like a scary movie we won't allow our children to
That's
watch.
exactly what it is.
Climate scientists and journalists are human, and just like normal people, they have hopes for the future and probably kids. When people have children, they may become irrationally hopeful about the future. Accepting the idea that it may be too late to slow, let alone stop, anthropogenic global warming is still a sour pill to swallow, unless you're a masochist and enjoy acidic taste. Another reason is that by admitting the window to save ourselves may already be closed, most reasonable climate experts and reporters know that they would be indirectly sending the following message to the world. After years of studying the climate crisis, we've come to the conclusion that we're all going to die, even if we stop burning fossil fuels. So fuck it. We might as well keep this party going, baby.
Oh, that's a hard one.
This is something right wing politicians and news outlets like Fox News would bask in. Suddenly, they would admit global warming is actually happening and that humans are to blame, but it's too late to stop it, so who cares? Keep enjoying your life, eating your steaks, driving your SUVs, And let's get rid of all those pesky solar panels and windmills and make coal and
Oh my
oil the
God.
only sources of energy worldwide. Come to think of it, let's all have a cigarette plus a glass of whiskey with a quaalude to help us forget about the world's problems and our own. If it's too late to stop global warming, should we just throw in the towel? Whether a smoker who has been diagnosed with terminal cancer should continue to smoke because it makes no difference at what point is a matter of debate. The thing is, smoking comes with more added value because just lung cancer and other respiratory diseases, like the simple fact that it makes it harder to breathe, it stinks, it makes your teeth yellow, and is a
Ew.
nuisance for those who'd rather breathe oxygen instead of ammonia. A similar argument can be made for burning fossil fuels and the farming of animals for food. Indeed, we may have crossed the point of no return, but consequences of our industrial activities go beyond just the warming planet.
Yep.
Exposure to air pollution causes cardiovascular diseases, respiratory diseases, and numerous cancers. On average, 6.7 million people die a year from pollution caused by the burning of fossil fuels, not to mention how factories that produce coal, plastics, textiles, etc., pollute rivers, lakes, reservoirs, making our drinking water unsafe. Animal agriculture for meat production, aside from contributing more to global warming than the entire global transportation industry, is extremely cruel to animals, along with being the leading driver of wildlife habitat destruction, a leading cause of freshwater depletion, and among the leading contributors of water pollution in ocean dead zones. Is there a conspiracy to keep us in the dark? Not exactly. I'd say it has more to do with a kind of collective denial.
Hmm.
In some ways, it's the product of ignorance on the part of the media. I don't know. They can't claim ignorance. It's
No.
willful denial.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. In other ways, it's irrationality on the part of scientists, while in others, it's well planned in a way to keep hope alive and prevent humanity from adding more fuel to the fire by giving the option that we may still save ourselves if we stop now. They may or may not know what they're doing when they tell us we can halt climate change if we halt our industrial activities. But regardless of what scientists and the media tell us, we seem reluctant to stop the party that started the onset with the Industrial Revolution over 200 years ago. Progress is like a drug to us. And just like Amy Winehouse, we refuse to go to rehab. Let's see if we end up following in her footsteps on a global scale.
That was good. This guy, this writer,
Yeah, he's good.
Roberto Burgess. Roberto, let's take a look at. He's got a lot of stuff. Let's see
Does
what
he?
he's about. Yeah, born in New York, raised in Florida. He was in the Air Force from 2000 to 2004, after which I lived on 4 continents, studying, working, observing, and learning about the world and human nature. I am also the co-founder of Oficina Universitaria Foundation, helping youths in Colombia go to college, stay, and graduate, with the aim of reducing inequity by democratizing education. Each article you see here is a kind of mirror through which we can look at ourselves through an objective lens, enabling us to learn that the inner working of our about the inner working of our collective psyche. The blog is just about that, our inherent flaw as a species, the future that may be awaiting us, the perils we may be facing, brought about by us. I like that writing, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Wow. What a night. We've got
what a
our
night.
we're still
Oh,
celebrating our
what a
birthday. And
night.
it's really not a laughing matter. That article actually was very serious, and we talk about we talk about the most serious issues here. But if you don't keep a smile on your face or have some kind of humor, you ain't going to make it. Go Looney Tunes with all the science that we read.
Yeah, no kidding, Sandy.
Yeah. So happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you
We've
too,
got
darling.
the happy birthdays behind us. How's everybody doing out there? Thank you guys for coming very much. It's great to have Jennifer back on Friday. I missed you, Jen. We had some
Yeah.
interesting shows, but I missed you, and I think we got a lot of happy birthday, Jennifer Hines. Absolute, thank you. And of course, there was
Thanks,
that
that's
fire where 18,000 cows died in Texas, I think it was. Oh my God, there's so much shit going on. It just, there's never a dearth of bad news. Some good. Try to find it. I think, and then the ludicrous, like the guy from Shark Tank.
Yeah, no
Idiot
kidding.
from Shark Tank. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are definitely feeling like this.
Oh my God.
Sometimes. Yeah. Let's hope not for a while. Okay, I'm letting you lead up the rear, baby.
Well, I mean, abrupt climate change is upon us. Magical thinking has been upon us for quite some time. But at some point, the two, I mean, maybe you can deny climate change the rest of your life, and good for you. But things are happening that generally don't happen. And when planes start getting their bellies ripped open from lightning reaching up from the ground and cutting them through their belly, something's just not right.
No. And
That's what-
I concur. And all those activists that are going to go out on Earth Day, I wish it was just more than so many activities or, oh, we're going to clean up our neighborhood. I mean, we need action. It just action. I'm the activist, and I hope that people will, like Jim McHenry, will just be screaming from the rooftops about this stuff. Is that too much to hope for?
I'm a huge Jim McHenry fan.
Yeah,
y'all know.
me too.
Absolutely, I am.
I know you are. Yes, we all have we're all very close. Close knit.
It's a good family.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody, and we will see you next week on Friday again, and I'll be back Tuesday.
Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Sounds
Happy
like
birthday.
it.
Oh, wait a minute.
Happy birthday.
We have to do something. We did not decide
You?
the flush of the day.
Oh.
So we just flushed.
What are we going to flush away today?
Well,
We just flushed in general.
we can flush again. Yeah, in general. I'm telling you, it was we did the in general flush. I'll end with a flush, and we're just gonna flush away all of the bullshit. How's that? We flush away the bullshit. All right, babe. We flush away the
All right.
bullshit, and we listen to music from Paris. Da, da, da. Good night, guys.